Hey, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our June 10th regular council meeting. As you can see, it's game night, and in true fashion, members of council are wearing their jerseys, except for Councillor Meyer. As we know, it's been proven that it's lucky if the six of us wear it, and Councillor Meyer does not. I think Saturday's game was definitely proved that fact, because we had a mismatch of jerseys, not jerseys, and the Oilers lost. So we're thinking that if we did the same thing we did today, the Oilers should win. But I did shower after coming back from Calgary. Just let everybody know. Members of council, there's the agenda before you. If I can have a motion to adopt the agenda. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The Town Council adopt the June 10th, 2024 regular council meeting agenda as presented.
Okay. Administration, anything to add? Okay. Thank you. With that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Okay. And that is carried. Moving on to number 3 of our agenda is the public input session. This is the time that we allow residents to address council on anything that's not on the current agenda. Administration, has anybody registered to speak?
Through your worship, no one has registered.
Okay. Thank you. Is anybody in the gallery like to speak to council on anything that's not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, moving on with our agenda. Number 4 is presentations and delegations. We have nothing scheduled tonight. Number 5 is statutory public hearing. We have nothing there as well. So moving on to number 6 is the adoption of council minutes. Members of council, you had the opportunity to read them. Any errors or omissions? Councilor Loynes.
My name is spelled incorrectly.
Thank you. That's why I picked you. If you can make the motion, please, as amended.
Town Council approved the June 10th, 2024 regular council meeting minutes as amended.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councilor Loynes. And I think for the first little while when I was a newly minted councillor, my name always showed up as Chow because it automatically defaulted to Chow instead of Choi, but I think they've typed Choi enough times that just now it's just part of the vocabulary of Estonian plain. Any more errors or omissions? Okay. So the motion is as amended. Call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Moving on to number 7 is the council boards and committee minutes. And this one is for the April 17th of the Estonian Plain Public Library. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The Town Council received the council board and committee minutes for information.
Okay, thank you. Members of council, you had the opportunity to read them. Any questions or comments to the board appointee? Okay. Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I think we went over this, but I'm just looking for clarity. Within the minutes, it often states the chair. The chair called the meeting, the chair declared, but I don't see it listed anywhere who either was the chair or who was the acting chair for the meeting. I'm just wondering if that's been addressed.
Okay, thank you. I think that was raised last time we accepted the meetings. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, this is a set of minutes that are prior to the last question that was. It will be addressed, but if you read item 7, it does say Chair's report, Brenda Spitzer. It refers to Brenda as the chair.
Okay, thank you. I think the conversation was around to have those members listed on the top as well.
Yeah, moving forward from the last meeting that we had this, it will be corrected.
Okay. Thank you. I have a question to the representative. Also, there's 2 guests. One was definitely our town manager that provided an update regarding the town strategic plan, but there was another guest. Was that a guest, a prospective board member, or is just somebody that was interested?
A prospective board member.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for clarity and understanding? Okay. See none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, moving on to 8 is our bylaws. So 8.1 is bylaw 2693, debenture borrow 24, and this for the recreational facility. Go ahead, administration.
Thank you and good evening, Your Worship and Council. On May 13th, 2024, Council passed the first reading of bylaw 2693 DEB 24, authorizing the borrow for the construction of the recreation facility. The second and third readings of the borrowing bylaw are before council this evening, and to authorize the borrowing on the facility in the amount of $31 million. The bylaw has been advertised as per the Municipal Government Act requires under Section 606 with no petitions received. Based on the project cash flow, project projections, the first draw on the debenture is anticipated in 2025. Administration will continue to work to explore other funding opportunities to reduce the debenture requirement. Debenture bylaws must be approved by council prior to construction commencement, hence the bylaw before council tonight. When compared against the town's current debt limit based on 2023 audited financial statements and taking into consideration all other debenture bylaws presented to council in 2024, the bylaw is still within the municipal debt limit available as set out by the MGA. However, the internal debt limit is set by council in the debt management policy and would be exceeded if the full draw occurred. Administration will bring a motion before council prior to drawing debt over any internal debt limit should that occur. Administration requests council consider second and third reading to the bylaw 2693 DEB 24 this evening.
Thank you for your presentation. Members of council, any questions for clarity and understanding? Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for bringing this forward again this evening. This is one that the closer we get, I think the more excited we all are that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. Just wondering, not necessarily related to the debenture bylaw itself, but when we can expect to hear from administration a bit of a timeline update on the rec center project moving forward.
Okay, go ahead.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Anderson and the rest of council. At this point, we're in a pre-qualification tender process. So for the next 30 days, we'll be receiving bids from qualified applicants, and we'll narrow that down to a field of 6. Once that occurs, then we'll enter into the tender process. So the 6 will be given the opportunity to tender the job itself. So basically, that pre-qualifier just ensures that the applicants that are bidding on the job have the credentials, have the crews, have the skill sets to complete the job as we're asking for.
Perfect. And then just for my own clarity, if the debenture bylaw passes this evening, is there any other requirements of council to approve, the accepted tender or anything like that as this project moves forward?
Go ahead.
You're through to Councillor Anderson. So essentially, if the tender comes back favorable for the budget that council has adopted and approved for us, then we will just move right forward with the project. If there's a hiccup in the tender process and we have to come back to council with more correspondence about how the tender came back, then certainly we will be doing that as quickly as the tenders are open.
Perfect, thank you. And again, just super excited to see this come to fruition and look forward to the updates as we move forward here. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thank you. And Councillor Laurie, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. A question from you to administration regarding the budget financial impact section on page 18, and I think it was stated in the opening preamble. It talks about the debenture borrow, and it talks about meaning the debt limit available against municipal limit would be 4% and would exceed the town's internal debt limit by 16%. Then it goes on further to state that it is anticipated the full draw of the recreation facility debenture would not be required until 2026. So just looking for clarity for myself and for the public to understand. So when we're talking about the available debt limit of 4% and the exceeding of 16%, that's using today's debt limit and today's calculations, correct? Whereas in 2026, if that's when we're anticipating the full debenture to be borrowed, it is likely that we will see a change in our debt limit we believe will be higher, which would then in turn actually not put us quite as close to that debt limit. Would that be a correct understanding?
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Laurie. That would be correct. This is as of today if all of the funds were drawn today. The strategy on this to match needs would be to do multiple debenture draws as well. So we would, even if we would need some funds next year in 2025, we would not draw the full amount until it's necessary in 2026.
So thank you. And then just further to that, again, we've kind of spoke throughout this process that even adding the debenture payments into the mill rate, once the facility's open, our growth projections, et cetera, all of those will play into increasing our available debt limit in the future and in 2026. Do we have any current projection as of today what our debt limit may be in 2026 based on current trends?
Thank you through your worship to Councillor Laurie. I don't have the data right specifically to me, but it is within the corporate plan. So it will increase. Our debt limit is 1.5 times our revenue, and so we have projected some tax increases, some growth within the corporate plan. So that's likely the best place for anyone to go and take a look for that, but I don't have that specific, but I email that out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, an email update on that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Any more questions for clarity and understanding? Seeing none, Councillor Meyer, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Town Council gives second reading to bylaw 2693/DEB/24, a bylaw to authorize debenture borrowing in the amount of $31,451,871 for the recreation facility.
Good. Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Members of Council, the floor is open for debate and commentary. Councillor Hansard, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to go on record, I guess, stating that when we look at the amount of money that's going to be spent on the first phase of the recreation center, I continue to be amazed that I have yet to have one person approach me in a negative way about this. I actually contemplated that before we went down to FCM and wondered, why is it that on things of much less magnitude, we get a lot of feedback? And I've concluded on my own, this is not coming from anyone else, but over many years sitting here and having decisions made to spend tax dollars, that many of the people are the very ones who want and have asked for and require the space for the various sporting activities and physical activities that this building will meet. And so with that in mind, I feel very assured that the public is behind council in taking this big leap and moving forward to build the first phase of our recreation center. And I'm proud to sit here with my council, bringing that to life.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Hansard. Any other questions, comments, and debate? Okay, seeing none, I will support the motion on the floor. As council recalls, and our administration and also those that are involved in just reading the council highlights, this has been a long time coming for our community. Council has been reviewing this project since 2009, and at this point in time, council has decided to invest in our community for the future. I look forward to seeing what this brings for our community as we continue to grow and strive to 30,000 people. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Moving on to the third reading. Councillor Hansard, please.
Your Worship, I move that Town Council give third reading to bylaw 2693 DEB 24.
Thank you. I appreciate your words earlier. Any other comments before I call third reading? Councillor Laurie, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to administration for pointing out where I would find the most accurate information for that projected debt limit. I just wanted to provide this information quickly as we finalize this decision. As was noted in the lead sheet, currently the debt limit for the town is $70.8 million. As of our corporate plan, the budget is projecting that our debt limit in 2026 will be $78.3 million. So there's a pretty significant increase there in our debt limit by the time we're looking at this debenture to be drawn in full. So again, just the concerns I have heard, because I have heard some concerns from residents, is in relationship to how close to the debt limit we are going. And so I think it's very important to note, we're looking at a potential projection of about $7.5 million increase in our debt limit over today's projection, which will certainly make that a lot less close to the cap.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that and sharing that. And definitely when we have the conversation and debate, the work that staff has done to phase in the debenture borrow and everything else allows that opportunity to actually grow into it as well. So as mentioned in the report, that if we boiled everything right now, yes, that is where we are, but currently we're not. And in terms of the what we have on the horizon in terms of growth and productions that's happening within the community, I think we may see some good times ahead. Any other questions, comments, and debate? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of third reading? That is carried. Okay, moving on to 8.2, and this is the MDP re-ramp based on some of the plans and regional agriculture master plan that was passed by the Edmonton Metro Region Board that was here and when they presented to us last week. So go ahead, administration.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, the Town Administration is presenting the first reading of the Uniquely Stony Plain MDP update for 2024. As the Mayor or as your worship, pardon me, just indicated, this update coincides with the acceptance of the Regional Agricultural Master Plan in 2022, alongside the EMRB requirements. The Town Sustainability Planner and the Manager of Planning are both here tonight to provide a presentation and answer questions if necessary. This is the Sustainability Planner's first presentation to this council for the town, and I will now pass it to the town's planner for his presentation.
Thank you. Hi, Council. I'm here tonight to give you a presentation and information on the 2024 Municipal Development Plan update. So the Municipal Development Plan is the town's framework for future growth. It sets on the vision and the goals for development, and it establishes a roadmap for sustainable land management for the next 30 years in the town. So within the town's land use planning framework, the Municipal Development Plan falls within the municipal planning scale. And at this scale, the MDP provides broad policies in order to guide development and provide overall planning and development guidance for planning and development within the town. So the purpose of this update to the MDP is with the adoption of the Edmonton Metropolitan Region Board's Regional Agricultural Master Plan, or the RAMP, in 2021. All member municipalities must update their MDPs by the end of 2024 in order to incorporate any policy direction and guidance on agriculture in the region and to align with the RAMP. And we're also doing this to align with the Town of Stony Plain's regional context statement, which was brought to Council in May of 2023. So while our MDP already included many policies on agriculture, we did need to make some minor updates to ensure it incorporates all of the agriculture policy direction that was found in the RAMP. This update to the MDP is also part of our work as members of the MRB, and it demonstrates our commitment to working with regional partners, and in this case specifically on agriculture in the region. This update to our MDP also completes one of the actions in the town's environmental stewardship strategy. It's Action 1 in the agriculture ecosystems, which is to support the creation, implementation, and realization of the Regional Agricultural Master Plan. So the changes that we actually undertook in this update, we've updated our MDP to align with the RAMP policies and direction and with the town's regional context statement. So these changes were limited to only the agricultural policies and any agricultural direction within the town, and it included a small number of new policies and a number of updates to existing policies within the MDP. We also updated the current population figure in the MDP to align with the current population in the town, and we also updated some references to documents that are now current in the town, such as the RAMP being a part of what provided some direction for the MDP. We also updated Figure 3, which is the Parks and Open Space map in the MDP, and we updated this by adding the RAMP. There's 2 policy areas and also the prime agricultural land that has been identified in the RAMP. And this was done in order to support agricultural policies within the MDP. And as you can see, all Any of the new policies and any of the changes are shown in red in the red line version of the MDP that is attached to this agenda item. So the next step, so with council's authorization, administration will proceed with advertising and scheduling a public hearing and second reading for the July 8th council meeting. And because the MDP is a statutory document, it requires review by the EMRB through the regional evaluation framework process. So if this MDP receives the first and second reading from council, administration will proceed with submitting this updated plan to the EMRB for review in the summer. So once the MDP is approved by the EMRB, we will bring it back to council in the fall for third reading, and we'll ask for council's final decision on the adoption of the final MDP. And thank you. That's all I have, and open to questions.
Thank you for your presentation, and definitely like to see some of those corrections and additions on there, and definitely like the focus on the urban agriculture. So, members of council, any questions for clarity and understanding of the presentation? And definitely everything that's presented in the red line version, you can ask questions about as well. Councillor Hanser.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry, thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to direct your attention to page 172.6.8B. I read that about 4 times trying to figure out what in the world is this supposed to be saying. And I just wanted to suggest that perhaps the wording on that, although it may be too late since we're here ready to adopt it, perhaps that might be cleaned up a little bit, only for the sake that it's not really clear for me the restrictions that will be placed on those agricultural uses that are more than field crops or more than market gardens. I feel like putting those field crops and market gardens in there perhaps limits the possibility, because this MDP is for our boundaries as they are now. But we have outlying communities or outlying areas of Parkland County that have been brought into Stony Plain proper, and I do understand that farmers don't always, when they've been here, been what they are, and we annex them, they don't understand that they can't just carry on as they did for many years, changing out their crops, changing out the purpose of their farm and so forth. And I think if we truly respect the agricultural industry, we have to acknowledge that they will still want freedom to operate as full-fledged farmers on their property. And if indeed they're passing their land on to future generations in their family, that will also be a desire of those family members. I thought, and I'm not wanting to wordsmith because that's not my job here, I didn't come up with the motion or this piece, but suggesting that if you did away with identifying what might be acceptable and just put what won't be, such as the intense, where did it say, something along the livestock operations. I don't think you'd get anybody in the town of Stony Plain that would argue about that. But when you get down to starting to identify garden markets and things like that, you're kind of constricting what many farmers do. And even if they've got a small operation or a smaller operation, as farmers have aged, they're never going to admit that they're just doing garden markets. So I'm just wondering if that could be looked at, and maybe somebody more in tune with how that might work out in words could be clarified so that we don't offend all of these people whose lands we annexed.
Administration, go ahead.
Through the council and through your worship to Councillor Hanser and all of council. in essence, I guess the comments that I just heard were predominantly for the area that was not in red. One of the values that we tried to keep when we were making these changes was not to change any of the existing policies as an intent. Again, this was an administrative update that we were trying to avoid changing any of the essence of what council has previously approved. I would be interested if there was any comments to the red underlined sections that have kind of that inference. We could look at making those tweaks before we come back for second reading, but I think most of those comments were directed to the area that was above the red outline, if I'm correct. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for some clarification, I think what Councillor Hansard has mentioned, the red line, the addition actually addresses what she's mentioned. Because I think Councillor Hansard is making sure that if we annex more land from Parkland County, those farmers or those landowners are able to maintain their livelihood in the way that how they operated. And in the red section on page 172, it does state that we added that on there is to ensure access to these agricultural uses are maintained so that the agricultural producers can continue their operations. So if we, in the future, have to grow and we annex more land, those lands that we have annexed will be able to continue their agricultural operations until the time that we see that development go into there. So I think what you mentioned, Councillor Hansard, is covered, and thank you for bringing that up. Councillor Laurie, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just referring to page 35, I believe it was. Yes, page 35, which is page 9 of the MDP. I believe the original document, as is stated here, was produced in 2013-2014, so we're about 10 years old. And we've had now one revision that was adopted, and we've got the second revision now that is coming through. I'm just wondering if we can get a reminder of when was the main revision or a fulsome revision of the MDP contemplated, and will this revision now push that back?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Laurie and all of Council, this is not necessarily made to push that back. In the case of this, we're looking to time that with the upcoming elections, so some work would start late next year, kind of some background research. Again, this is all pending council funding, approval through the corporate plan, but ultimately it would be 2026 where we would be doing more wholesome review, where we'd engage the community council, look at the vision, the policies, the framework, and really look to further enhance these here. Again, this is just really an administrative update for some of these agricultural things coming from the regional side.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Excellent. No, thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor Meyer, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have 3 questions and 1 typo to point out. So I'll start with the typo because that one's easy. Page 119, I think the last sentence in the first paragraph, I believe, is missing a 2. Just before it says something about go.
Okay, thank you. We'll make that change.
Okay, and so my question for clarity is, thinking back to a recent concern, we had a property north of the town where we subdivided off a portion for a residence for, I believe, the retiring couple and whatnot. Am I shaking heads? We're all, okay, thank you, sorry. Just going to page 167, I believe it addresses the town will encourage limited subdivision of areas future. I'm curious, 6.5.1 or yeah, 0.1. Would that clause limit our ability to do a similar type of thing where we were able to subdivide and make accommodations for a resident such as the one that came before us a few months back?
Your Worship to Councillor Meyer. guess, challenging to say exactly how that would be interpreted at this point in time. A lot of those situations where we're dealing with a subdivision, going from a high-level policy in the MDP that is reflecting a regional policy and the context statements that the MRB is working at through the ramp. Really, when we go through the specific areas, say, for example, you might have an area structure plan in effect, perhaps not. I think the example you're talking about, it's not an area where we have a neighborhood plan in effect. So again, we'd be relying on the land use bylaw and some of the specific regulations around subdivision in there in terms of allowing the fracturing of land. What I'd say is that this here would support not doing that, but given certain circumstances, there is the ability for the town within the delegation of authority from the council to the town as the subdivision authority to enable and to really understand the context of the situation to enable things like that to take place. Now again, if it's a rezoning, it would be something that would be brought right to council. But if it is something that's more administratively done, like subdivisions, that would be something that we'd take into account. So I would say this here is a policy that's been added because it specifically needs to be to meet the regional context statement, but it doesn't necessarily change the ability to allow something that should make sense at a granular level.
Okay, so if I can just kind of repeat it back to you, so it doesn't necessarily handcuff us, it makes it more difficult.
Through your worship to Councillor Myers. In essence, this would be a policy that would support not doing it. But again, like all policies, we need to take them into account with the context that decision's being made within.
Okay, so again, that's a good question, Councilor Myers. So this policy, again, the municipal development plan, allows us to view the town in its totality as the town, how we want it to grow. So fragmenting off smaller sections out of larger future development lands causes kind of a conflict when we plan for the future. However, if those situations do occur when it's a family that needs to separate and then you're trying to maintain and care for their elderly parents and stuff, to subdivide a portion of that off, then that's a one-off thing that there is a process that those individuals can apply to the town to have those subdivided and address those needs. So the idea is not to allow every quarter section to be fragmented. And so,
okay.
Point of clarity, Your Worship.
Go ahead.
The specific example that's being referenced, if memory serves me right, is the SDAB chair. It was actually denied. The application was actually denied by the town, and it was appealed by the applicant to the SDAB, who then approved it. So when it was applied to the town actually denied it based on the plans that are in place, the policies that are in place. The applicant then appealed it, and it went to the SDAB. So it was not approved through the town's policies. It was approved by the Subdivision Development and Appeal Board.
Yeah. So again, as mentioned, so there is a policy to go in the future if that does happen. And residents do want to split off a portion of their subdivision for like a family member for caring of their elderly parents, but we're not making it a habit of fragmenting all our future development lands.
Okay. So that addresses that issue. I have another question, if I could. I'm just curious, going back to Councillor Hansard's example of future farmlands that we may wind up annexing for any number of reasons. I'm curious if we're kind of locking in what they can do with their land. I would be, and I know I'm thinking back to recent, I believe it was along Veterans. We had a number of residents that had been annexed over 20 plus years ago. We had extended their sort of tax exemption, and they had Parkland County rates for a number of years. That recently changed. I'm curious if we're limiting their ability to do things with their land, and we're kind of, as 6.5 here states, we're trying to keep it into large parcels. Does that have any implications in regard to like the taxes that they would pay? For example, if we annexed Parkland County land, I know we'd have some grandfathering there, I guess would be a term I'd use. But if we're going to say you can't then break it up or whatnot, would that oblige us to have to keep maybe a Parkland County rate for them or something like that?
Go ahead.
Through your worship to Councillor Meyer, my understanding of all of this is, in terms of, if your question, I guess, is that if we limit by policy the ability to fracture land, does that limit their ability to have more assessed value? Is that in essence where you're going? Like, are we talking about realizing more value of land due to a limitation of policy?
Sorry, no, I think I may have obviously not worded the question very well, I'm sorry. No, I'm speaking, there was farmland that had been annexed, I believe 20 plus years ago, and they had a parkland. Part of the annexation was they had the Parkland County tax rate, I believe, applied to their properties for a number of years. That recently just changed. But what I'm asking is, certainly if we're kind of lock you into, you have to keep your farmland contingent and all the rest of that, means it has to stay farmland. Would that then imply that we would have to, extend, say, a prorated tax rate for them?
No. So in terms of that, Councillor Meyer, so when a municipality annexes land, then there's usually agreement with the neighboring municipality of how long that tax rate will stay at. So the agreement with Parkland County was that those lands that were annexed was that the tax rate would stay for 20 years. So that doesn't change in terms of annexation if we continue to grow and we take more land. They're not limited to what they can do in terms of their land use and zoning for their properties. If they're still under the jurisdiction of Parkland County, they still can't do anything that they want as well. They're restricted by the regulations and municipal development plan of the Parkland County. So they would still have to apply for example, if they want to subdivide their lot to make a subdivision, they have to go through the process and apply, which is very the same thing with the town of Stony Plain. If we annexed it and 20 years later they want to make a subdivision, then they have to go through our process. So there's no limiting to what they can do or not do after we've annexed. The tax rate and the length of tax, if it should be Stony Plain tax rate or Spruce Grove or Parkland tax rate, that's based on confirmation when that annexation happens. So it could be 20 years, it could be 50 years, it could be 5 years. So there's no limiting to what individuals can do. And a good example of that is just west of town, off Range Road 12, those parcels of property were annexed in the late 1980s. And as you drive by there, there's still farm agriculture operations there and farming as well. So we haven't limited them or told them that they couldn't do that, is that they still have the ability to use that land how they've used it in history until they are ready to subdivide and do something with that land.
Okay, sorry, if I can just get a little more clarity. So, okay, for example, Range Road 12 is not necessarily the next place that's going to be developed. It wouldn't make sense. It's not, whatever the word is, contingent, or we won't use big words, but it's not the next area that's going to get developed. But I'm not sure if this is necessarily the case, but say when they were annexed, we agreed with Parkland County to give them a prorated, not prorated, but the Parkland County tax rate. Now, if that expires, but we are also at the same time saying you can't, we want to keep your farmland whole, but they're not the next, I mean, you've kind of, it's a bit of a catch-22 there. They're going to wind up seeing their tax rate increase because they're part of the town, but they're not going to be the next area that ever, because we've said we want to develop in a responsible manner.
Okay, yeah, so with farmland, the entire parcel is not taxed at a residential rate. Based on the things, there's, I believe, if I recall correctly, 3 acres of the area around the home is taxed at a residential rate, and then the rest is taxed at a farmland rate, which is cheaper than the rate. So there's still, the entire property is not taxed at the full rate. So that maintains the same because it's based on the MGA. The rate that we tax the living quarters or the 3 acres of the home site is the rate that we change.
All right, thank you for that.
Yeah, so we're not increasing their taxes for the entire parcel.
Appreciate that.
Any more questions for Claire? Do you have any more? Councillor Meyer? Do you have any more? You had 2, 3, okay. Councillor Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for, presenting the updates to us this evening. I'm looking at page 127 of our agenda package, specifically 1.1.h. It was just kind of a semantics thing, but I'm reading the first couple of lines here and just looking for a little bit of personal clarity. The town encourages principles of good land and environmental stewardship, or the principles of good land and environmental stewardship. So just looking for some clarity on the wording here in that first part of the sentence.
Administration, that's 1.1.h.
Through your worship to Councillor Anderson. I would say we can wordsmith that one a little bit better, but ultimately, you know, we're trying to look for the principles of good land. There might have been the development and agriculture or environmental stewardship until the need for that. So let us look into that and see if there's any tweaks for the second reading.
No, I appreciate that. I think I'm going principles of good land, and I'm going, well, what are these principles of good land that maybe I'm missing? And so in my own head, reading through, the town encourages principles of land and environmental stewardship speaks to the land and environmental principles that we're referring to there. And then kind of as it goes on, as we get to the fourth last line there, you know, the town encourages, but now sort of the tense changes and we're committing to recognizing. And so I just got a little bit lost through this one. And the reason that I bring that up is similar to the item that Councillor Hansard spoke to on page 172, 6.8b. We have an independent clause with like 3 or 4 successive dependent clauses, and it actually, for me anyway, loses some of the meaning there, and I kind of get lost in clause after clause after clause. And I wonder if there's a way for us to break that into maybe even 2 sentences for clarity on both of those items. And so just a couple of thoughts there around clarity in the way that it's presented this evening.
Thank you for bringing this forward. We'll look into them. Again, just some context is often we are looking at, depending on how the regional context statements came from the MRB, we're trying to keep them almost word for word. So that could be some of the awkward wordness might just be a translation sort of thing. And the other one is we're trying to keep these policies in the same standard where typically each policy is a standalone sentence. So we'll take those into advisement.
Yeah, perfect, and I appreciate that. And just a little bit of further clarity there, 1.1h again, page 127. The town encourages principles of good land and environmental stewardship, and if we jump down to the third last line, and commits to recognizing. Whereas going with and committing to recognizes actually changes the tense of the sentence that's there. And so again, just another example of the clarity that I'd be looking for. So thank you for your response. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Anderson. So to administration, when this comes back for second and third reading, if that needs to be kind of wordsmith, please highlight that in your presentation.
That is correct. Any changes from the first reading will be identified in the second reading.
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions for clarity and understanding? Well, I just have one question. In terms of the front page, I forget what page it is, you know how we've just changed it to the Uniquely Stony Plain MDP 2024. Is it possible to not do that? So is it possible to say Uniquely Stony Plain Municipal Development Plan 2013 where it's improved and then put version 2.2024? Like many textbooks that I recall reading in university, it's always a different version, but you knew when the original data was collected. So if we highlight that this plan was developed in 2013, this is the 2024 version that we adopted, so we still can track that this wasn't all approved and decided in 2024.
Again, it's one of the things we can look into advisement for. I know in the past, this was actually Stony Plain, or uniquely Stony Plain Municipal Development 2019, because that's when it was last updated. I presume when we look at this in 2026 or in the near future here, that it would probably have a more holistic one and have a new update. Again, we'll look at if we can tweak that or not.
I appreciate that. And I think the first update, the party list was definitely a lot less changes, and it was still very fresh, and a lot of our history and our conversations were with our residents. But now we're that much further. We're 11 years away. So the next time, so that freshness is not there anymore. So I want to make sure that we're kind of cognizant of letting our residents know that this originally came to town in 2013, and this is the second version of making some amendments to it.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions of clarity, questions, answers? Okay. With that, who have not called on yet? Oh, Councillor Laurie, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that Town Council give first reading to bylaw 2694/DNP/24, a bylaw to adopt the uniquely Stony Plain Municipal Development Plan 2024, and to authorize administration to proceed with notification of a public hearing to be held on July 8th, 2024 for bylaw 2694/DNP/24.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Laurie. Members of Council, any comments and debate on the motion? See none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Oh, did you have a question? It was just on the Okay. Okay, moving on with our agenda. Number 9 is business items. So 9.1 is the offsite levy 2024 annual report. Administration, do you need some time?
Your Worship, we just need a minute to switch out some people.
Okay. Can we take a 5-minute recess? Thank you. All right, welcome back, Council, and thank you, Administration, for changing out the personnel that needs to do the presentation at this point in time. We look forward to the presentation on 9.1. Go ahead.
Good evening, Your Worship, and all of Council. Tonight, the town is also presenting an update to the town's offsite levies. This presentation covers the amount of levies received, intended use, and retained balances. The town's Manager of Engineering is here tonight to present this update. It is his first presentation to this council. I'll now turn it over to him for his presentation.
Thanks. Good evening, Council. The purpose of today's presentation is to provide reporting on the Offsite Levies Annual Report 2021 to 2023. As part of my presentation, I will provide some historical context about the offsite levies, talk about the current rates and the status, levies collected over the past 3 years, funds deployed on various projects, highlight some of the key financials, and finally the recommendations. Offsite levy is a funding mechanism through which municipalities recover the capital cost for the construction of infrastructure required to support growth. These are enabled under the Municipal Government Act and regulated through an offsite levy bylaw. The bylaw was approved in 2021, which replaced an outdated offsite levy model with a new one to regulate and guide the collection and use of offsite levies. Town is collecting levies under 4 categories, including transportation infrastructure, water, sanitary, and recreation facility. Section 648 of the MGA mandates the publication of report on an annual basis. Administration was aiming to align the annual reporting with the rate updates. However, this process didn't unfold as expected. As such, administration has decided to complete the reporting for 2021, 2022, and 2023 altogether at this time. The development industry is a crucial stakeholder, and our administration remains committed to working closely with them. This slide shows the current rates. The rates shown in the tables were approved in 2021 as part of the bylaw approval. The figure on the right-hand side shows various sanitary basins and as such has the varying basin rates for the sanitary infrastructure. Since the approval of these rates in 2021, no changes have been made and town is collecting levies based on these rates. Here is the summary of the offsite levies collected over the past 3 years and funds deployed under each category of infrastructure. The overall collection in each year is pretty consistent, varying between 350K to 500K, which is on the left side. And whereas the expenditure varied substantially, varying between 93K all the way to 1.13 million. And this is primarily due to the required infrastructure and timings of the projects. This slide provides the overview of the projects which were funded through the offsite levies over the past 3 years, which include design of the recreation facility, transportation master plan, North Business Park lift station, and Veterans Boulevard's upgrade. So here are some of the key highlights. The opening balance as of January 2021 was 452,581. Over the past 3 years, town collected 1.24 million and the interest earned is around 128K. Whereas the total funds deployed on the projects were around 2.13 million. Currently, the fund is sitting in deficit of around 318K. Having a reserve in deficit is not ideal, but kind of normal though, because offsite levies offer a funding mechanism where municipality usually front-end the cost of the infrastructure and then recover over the time as development progresses. Administration aims to provide these reports annually to ensure continued ongoing transparency and accountability in the management of offsite levies and to comply with the MGA requirements. As my last slide, administration requests that Town Council accept offsite levy report 2021 to 2023 for information. And as a next step, the report will be published publicly on the webpage. Thank you very much. Open for questions and comments.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Manager, and it definitely allows us to have an idea of the offset levies that we've collected over the last 3 years, and then going forward. Members of Council, any questions for clarity and understanding? Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for being here with us this evening and providing this information and allowing us an opportunity to ask questions. I'm going to start with one, and I may have a couple of more after we give others a chance, but just looking to page 193 of 214 of our agenda package, under number 3 here, current offsite levy rates, we see sanitary sewer 0 to 68,223. Underneath, there is an asterisk there that refers to, I believe, the sanitary sewer being collected in basin areas 2 and 4. I'm just looking maybe for an explanation and some clarity on why we collect offsite levies in those 2 specific areas and not in the other areas that are being developed. Okay.
Through your worship to Councillor Anderson. So basically, like in terms of these sanitary rates, because there are certain specific infrastructure which only helps and kind of service that area specifically, and that's why they have like their individual rates based on the benefiting area itself. Whereas for the transportation and the rest of the infrastructure, because they are kind of providing more kind of a town-wide benefits in terms of the system, so that's why they have like a single rate for individual infrastructure itself.
Okay, so from my understanding that, so that would be, like if we needed a specific pump station for that zone, then that would have an additional levy. That's why it's getting charged to that zone and not throughout the entire town. Is that correct?
Correct.
Anything else, Councillor Anderson?
A little bit of thought. We'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Lowry, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to the manager for the presentation. I'm just curious, as I read through your presentation and the report, again, it identifies that we have levies for transportation, water, sanitary sewer, and recreation. My understanding is there are other things that can be included in off-site levies, such as libraries, police stations, and fire halls. I'm just wondering if you can expand a little bit why we don't see any of those off-site levies collected in the town of Stony Plain.
Through your worship to Councillor Lowry, thank you for the question. So you're right, there are a number of different other levies that we don't currently access. Many of these projects, or I guess these, a better way to put it, as the manager mentioned, these different levies are actualized based off of current project need or foresight. So one example is the town always has had transportation, water, and sanitary sewer levies to some degree, and most recently we've been allowed or permitted by the provincial government, and the town took advantage in 2021 update to add a recreation levy. The circumstances in there was the town had a number of robust planning and documents that we could point to when we're introducing these levies. There's a lot of dialogue with the development community that we are required to have as part of this process. And there was also a degree of surety with the recreation levy being actualized in the short term. The other levies that you reference, those are still accessible to the town under the current act. However, we don't have any immediate plans that we can point to and say with immediate costs. So should the town grow, which it will, and we start to see those plans roll into our corporate planning and our capital planning, those would be tools for us to actualize into this plan.
Okay, that's a good question. Can you provide when we're going to do a review?
Through your worship, so as the manager mentioned, we are reviewing these rates and the levies regularly. A part of the discussion, the one key point is working with the development committee on any expected adjustments. So we do review them regularly, considering comments we receive from the development committee on how to bring them forward to council if and when. But for now, right now, we're just presenting the totals were collected, as I mentioned at the beginning, the totals that were collected, as well as and how we actualized them over the course since the update.
Councilor Lowry?
Thank you, Your Worship, and appreciate the comments from the General Manager. I'm just kind of in my head thinking based on the comments when we talk about plans, and one that comes to mind is Stony Plains Fire Services. And so the example that rolls through my mind is we do have the Fire Services Master Plan, which talks about a progression to a full-time service. We do have our Municipal Development Plan, which talks about the growth of the community and expected population numbers and so on and so forth. We have a fire hall facility today that we understand through the various plans would need modernization to be to allow for a full-time service, things such as sleeping quarters and those type of things. So because it's not a brand new building, it's not a new asset, does that mean that that can't be contemplated in the offsite levies? Because we do have the plans in place that would show us that at some point within the next likely 10 to 20 years, we will have a significant capital cost in relation to upgrading and renovating our existing fire hall to meet the new service demands of full-time service.
Your Worship, I'm going to comment a bit on this one. So a couple things to provide to council, just at a, I guess I would say, start a little bit at a broader stroke too. So the tools being referenced, I believe library fire, are, although a few years old already at this point, I would say are still relatively new tools. I know when we put in the rec one a couple of years ago now, 2021, at the time I think we were only one of like 3 or 4 that were in existence. I can say I'm aware that some of these other ones are starting to show up in offsite levies bylaws across the province. So I would just a little bit of context, these are still relatively new, and the ability to design them and have them frankly be defensible, because they do have to be defensible, is still a work in progress, not just in Stony Plain, but I think in a number of communities. We have had these conversations about the fire and the library. Library was one where we just said, well, we sort of just built a new library. We can't levy backwards for it necessarily. But you have to also be able to prove that those changes are required from growth. And that is still a bit of a work in progress too, as to, how does that get completed in the planning documents, and then, to lead to part of the bylaw. In specific reference to fire, yeah, so what, if we were, at some point, we would have further information about what that expansion size could look like and so on, or even just a little bit different. If you know we are going to be adding in another fire hall in its entirety, those can get built in. But we do have to have I would say, decent cost estimates for sure, to be able to then track those cost numbers back into the bylaw. And again, and I'll just use the term be defensible, because some of these do get challenged by development industry and can be struck down or altered and so on. So I'll stop there, Your Worship, just a bit more context to that particular perspective.
Thank you. Councilor Lowry?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and just some general comment on that. I appreciate the town manager's comments, and yes, relatively recent. I think it was 2018 amendments to the Municipal Government Act that allowed us to start collecting for those. Where I look at is the financial considerations the town of Stony Plain is currently looking at, as we've just seen this evening with the approval of the recreation facility debenture bylaw, and we've talked about our debt servicing and our debt limits going forward. It's very apparent that we need to be prudent in making sure that we're not going to face unexpected or unanticipated debentures. And if we have tools like this that we can be utilizing, I'm hoping that we will, and I trust that we will be looking at what the best course of action is on that. I know, as was referenced, we do have many plans in place, and we do understand kind of some tipping points or some trigger points as to where that would come in. And I would liken it to be, it's easier to put it in at a smaller amount now, collecting for the future, rather than introducing a larger amount. And so I'm thinking, if we're predicting within 20 years we're going to need to expand our fire hall, then would it not be in the best interest to start putting that into our levies at a small amount now, to allow that amount to also earn interest and dollars as it sits in that fund? But I guess the question that I would have coming out of that then is, when are we due for the next revision or review of our offsite levies? And will that come with some type of a report that shows comparisons and who is already collecting these ones that are relatively new?
Go ahead, Administration.
Through your worship, the Councillor Laurie. Regarding the update, so as I mentioned, the town staff are always regularly reviewing the rates and ensuring that the projects that are coming into our long-term capital planning are being realized within the plans. A couple of things to consider is we have been having an action dialogue with the development community, and we do dialogue with them on being forthright about these are our projects coming in, these are the costs we're seeing, and we're continuing that discussion right now, quite frankly. And we continue to receive some comments from them about and discussion on some of the projects, and we're working through those, to be blunt. There's also the consideration that there are a number of major projects that are coming into the town as of right now, and we want to give ourselves some space here and say, well, how are those costs going to come in, and how can we make sure they're folded into these plans so that they're properly captured within the rates. So we're not coming to council too many times either. So to answer your question, there's likely an update coming in the next year or so. That's something that we would be considering over the next little bit.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for clear understanding? Councillor Hansard?
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to thank Councillor Laurie for bringing up the issue about comparison. And without that in front of us, because I realize this is a different kind of a report, could we just be apprised if we're comparable in our off-site levies, particularly with our neighboring municipalities, when it comes down to trying to bring a business or a developer into the town and they're looking at doing construction? I think it's important that we know that we're competitive without giving away everything or without overcharging, so that those people feel that their better deal is to go down the road and establish themselves elsewhere. So could we just be told a little bit of information about that, please?
Administration?
Through your worship, the Councillor Hansard. I don't have those rate comparisons right now. That certainly I could provide to council of our current environmental scan of what we know from our rates and also our neighbors, and that would be similar to what we provided in the 2021 update.
Okay, and I think when I did the review, when we first reviewed this back in 2011, 14, and then 21, when we actually adopted it, our rates are considerably lower than their neighbors next door to us. And that's easily found because you can see it's on the development website. I was just looking at our site. Our website actually shows it all. You can actually click on which zone you're in, and it tells you how much you're paying. And you can go to the other municipalities as well. You can click on their development links, and then it tells you. And I think there's a small caveat here in terms of what we're charging for offsite levies. As mentioned by the town manager, it has to be defendable and it has to be for the services that you have. You can't increase it or decrease it to get growth. So it's for the cost of having that sanitary brought in, then it's divided by all the hectares, and then they all pay it back. It's not designed to make more money or lose money, so it is the cost of what it is. Go ahead, Councilor Hansard.
Your Worship, I just wanted to clarify for our general manager, it was not my intention to ask you to go do a report and send it back to us. I'm happy to receive that when you were going to bring it forward. It's just comforting to me as an elected official to know that somebody's got their eyes on that and is keeping a watch on it and not allowing opportunity to slip away from Stony Plain, but to be fair and fair to our taxpayers as well.
Good comments, Councilor Hansard. Councilor Meyer?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a little clarification on page 206, the interest earned. I'm curious, is that interest earned on the levies collected, or is that interest earned on the outstanding levies owed.
Through your worship to Councillor Mayor. So yeah, it is the interest earned on the money which is sitting in the account, like for certain time of period, like the reserve itself.
Okay. So just so there wouldn't be any interest on outstanding levies owed?
So there will be actually, there will be an interest actually which so are you referring to like on the borrowing piece?
Yeah, well, it just says at the bottom, net fund balance, 317,000 deficit. And I'm assuming we collect offsite levies from developers, and if that's a deficit, then I'm assuming they owe us that money. So I was just wondering about the interest earned, if that's on what they owe us, or if that's on when we've collected it, it goes, and I understand we invest it while it sits in the bank, or while it doesn't sit in the bank.
Yeah, Your Worship, I could just maybe jump in kind of here. Just for Council's general understanding, there are some very specific rules about the way the offsite levies are accounted for and the interest accrues and so on and so forth. And I'll maybe just ask our Manager of Finance to make a few more comments on the question.
Thank you, through your worship, to all of council. So the model is designed to charge interest based on when the projects are charged there. So it's already built in within the rates, charging the interest to the developer. So we don't break that piece out because it's built within the rates. Rather, this is the interest exactly as you had mentioned. If there's a balance in that fund account, then that's invested and interest is earned back.
Maybe just quickly and further. So as I know Council's aware, we have investment income all over in the corporate plan and so on and so forth, but this interest earned must be retained within the offsite levy accounts and funds. It is not crossing over into what you could consider like our general revenue funds.
Okay. Councilor Meyer, anything else?
No, good for
Councilor Anderson?
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. I believe you answered this question already, but my question was going to be to the competitive nature of our offsite levies and whether they were an advantage to us, where developers would see us as a viable community and investment ready, or if they were potentially on the higher side and maybe a deterrent to that potential investment. I know, Mr. Mayor, you spoke to that, but I'm just wondering if there's any additional comments there.
Your Worship, I'll maybe make a few comments on that one too. So I think, I believe it is safe to say that traditionally or historically, Stony Plain has been on what I would say the lower side of the region when it comes to the pure offsite rate number. That could be, there's a lot of differences that go into those rates. But having said all that, we have been on the lower side, so the bottom quarter, so to speak, for a while. But I think the other question when you come, speaking to offsite levies, is the balance between ensuring that the municipality is prudently planning and allocating and gaining those levies in and funds, balanced with the reality that they are a competitive, can be a competitive factor in development, not just in comparison to other local governments or areas, but just as a sheer number. And that's a challenge that, again, the staff are aware of and do consider, as do I. And ultimately, when those rates do come in front of council, that's part of a dialogue as well. They can be changed. They are, evolving. The projects can change. The projects can get bigger, smaller, so on and so forth. It's more of an ongoing kind of. It continues to evolve, and there's a number of different factors. There's some very clear, very specific, very, algorithm type, almost equation based. Aspects that go into it, and then there's some other perspectives that have to be balanced in the setting and maintaining monitoring of the rates.
Okay, Okay, and that's a good question, Councilor Anderson. So again, I think I'll just echo what the town manager said. Historically, our rates have been a little bit lower than surrounding communities. I can recall two examples of that I can recall right now, right off my top of my head. One is the water and sanitary services to back then was called the West Terra campus. All right, that was put in and installed by the provincial government, which then they turned over to us to connect to. So therefore, we can't charge our offset levies on those laws because that was granted to us. And it was very similar to the West Sanitary Trunk Line, which was also a provincial grant that we applied for, that we received, which provides sanitary services to Zone 6. So those dollars are grant dollars, so we can't add that to our offset levies because that wasn't dollars that we put in forward. So in terms of, as Councillor Hanson mentioned, are we competitive? The answer is yes. It has to be respective of what we actually put in to bring that infrastructure in. And if we don't have dollars in it, we can't collect dollars from it. Okay. Any more questions for clear understanding? Okay, I have a question. In terms of the number of zones that we have for offset levies, is there a maximum amount of zones we can have, or can we consolidate them? Can we change them?
To your worship. So yeah, I mean, as of now, like the way it's being distributed is like in these zones, like what we have, like 12 zones. But like, yeah, I mean, based on the future, like it can happen, like if we can further go into further detail, and then we can like change those one as well. But as of now, like this is how we kind of establish those basins, and based on the infrastructure, what we're envisioning in the next 25 years.
Okay, and then, so there's no like maximum number of zones we can have. We can have 24 if we need.
We can, but as of now, to be honest, like the way it's been already set, so we probably need to leave it that way at this point. The reason being, like if we are going into different zones, then we need to reevaluate the whole thing, because again, like we can't go and charge or we can't double dip. So wherever we already collected, so that is how we need to go forward. So in that essence, so we need to keep those basins as pretty much it right now.
Okay, I appreciate the comments. And so I look forward to when we have this review and the conversation with council. I'll ask council to turn to page 147. So as you can tell, this is not part of this conversation, but it was a map on the previous conversation regarding the uniquely Estonian plain. As you can see, the differences of what our core areas, our residential area, employment areas, and our future development areas. As mentioned, that these new levy capabilities were passed by the provincial government in 2018 to allow us to collect offset levies for leisure, fire, and police. So I fully believe that growth should pay for itself initially. So when we look at those areas of future development, of urban development especially, definitely I can see needing more RCMP officers on the ground. We also will probably need to visit transitioning from our current system of a hybrid of having some full-time members paid on call to maybe a full-time fire department in the future. Right? So if we can see where we're going to go and where we're going to grow, and I think the commitment from our council to provide that, make sure that this community is safe in terms of fire protection, police protection, that conversation needs to be had with council as we let new subdivisions come in. Then we need to start collecting those offset levies for police and fire, because that growth needs to pay for those additional officers to protect us, not the existing members that are currently here. Okay. Any more questions, comments from members of council? Okay. See none. Councillor Melanie Loynes.
Town Council accept the offsite levy 2024 annual report for information.
Thank you, Councillor Loynes. Members of council, any questions, comments, and debate on the motion to accept for information? See none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, moving on to the next business item, 9.2. And this is the Alberta Municipalities nominations. Go ahead, Administration.
Thank you, Your Worship. Certainly excited to have this particular RFD in front of council. I do have a few comments and thoughts I'd like to just put forward, and then I believe our General Manager of Strategic Services has some further to add. Your Worship, I know that for myself, I was just down at our National City Managers Conference, and I know that council was just recently at Federation of Community Municipalities Conference in Calgary. And Your Worship, over my time and over my years here with the town of Stony Plain, I will proudly let you know that often I get asked about, the overall positive tone, good work, and effort, and the way this council and previous councils here in Stony Plain have led this community, and both the effort put in there and the respect for the institution and the room and the community and the residents that emanates out of this council chambers. Your Worship, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm quite proud to say that I believe our administration over a number of years has echoed and mirrored that approach by Stony Plain councils of past and present. I know we were asked to put these together, and I'm quite proud to have this in front of you. I hope, believe, and I think every one of the people and the team noted on here are deserving of these awards. We will work to get them submitted, and I believe we do require a council resolution to formalize and do so. So I'll stop there, Your Worship, and I believe our General Manager of Strat Services can add a little bit further.
Thank you, Town Manager. I would just enhance your comments by indicating that this is a slate of annual awards that is a call for nominations from Alberta municipalities, and we often seek an opportunity to highlight the work that we do as a town and identify where we are, we fit the criteria and the nomination process. So we've put forward both elected official recognition as well as the administration team, and as the town manager indicated, these do require a resolution of council in order for the nomination to be put forward. Once they're submitted to Alberta municipalities for consideration, the awards are announced at the Alberta Municipalities Fall Convention, and so we will await their results and their decision at that point in time. And so if there's any further questions, Your Worship, I'd be happy to entertain them, and those are our comments.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Members of council, any questions, comments for clarity and understanding? Okay, Councillor Laurie, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and appreciate these coming forward. I actually had taken a look when Alberta municipalities put the call for nominations out and felt that we had several members of council who were quite deserving of these awards and are being put forward. What I'm missing, unfortunately, though, in the lead sheet is a little bit of that explanation. So, for example, for the Award of Excellence that the nominee is proposed as yourself, Mayor Choi, I know there's a significant criteria that talks about contributions and what would qualify under those and that. So, being that this is a public document and that this would be something that would be viewed and shared with our residents, it would be nice to see a little bit more of that context and highlighting some of the reasons why and some of the things that you have done, as well as obviously Councillor Hansard and her terms on council that have equated to the 20 or more years, accomplishments of the senior leadership team and of the town manager. So I guess my question maybe would be to the town manager or the general manager of strategic services, are we going to receive something a little bit more fulsome as to some of the reasons behind the nominations?
Okay. Okay. So once the application is done, will council see the application packages?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Laurie and all of council, we'd be happy to share the information of the nominations. The nomination submissions are available online through the Alberta Municipalities website, so it does have the criteria and the category details that are required. We are just in the process of finalizing all those nominations, and so they weren't ready in time for the agenda package as the requirements for the deadline are next Monday, I believe, if I remember correctly. And so they weren't prepared in time for the nomination or for the agenda process, but we can certainly share that information if council is interested.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that.
So thank you, Your Worship. And a follow-up on that, I believe there is a communication piece of the lead sheet that says this item will be included in the council highlights news release. I'm just wondering if maybe if that can be held off until those packages are complete, and maybe we can have a specific news release that highlights the nominations of the awards. Again, I like the idea of celebrating what we've accomplished, because even if we're not selected, or any one of these awards maybe aren't selected by Alberta municipalities, I still think there's a lot of good as to why we feel that these nominations are justified, and I think it should be communicated out to the community as to why we feel that these awards are being put forward. So hopefully we can find a way to make sure that that communication piece gets tied in, not just, hey, here's 4 awards, we put our name forward without any reasoning behind it.
Yeah, administration, that's very, very possible, since the nominations need to be due by June 14th. So if we can just hold off the communications for a week later, after they're all done, then we can submit at the same time. Is that possible?
Yeah, Your Worship, I could say that's possible, and I think too. I will just express, appreciation. The notion being, I believe, presented is just that these are good news stories, and when we can tell a bit more of that story. So, we'll take that under advisement as to how to best do that, or how to approach it, and do that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hansard.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll take ownership of my little piece being a bit late. I got fairly short notice from our executive assistant to provide some background, my favorite, or the one big accomplishment perhaps, or 2 or whatever, and et cetera. But we had all of our Japanese visitors here. Then we immediately prepared to go away for 5 days to Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and we returned to have to prepare for tonight's meeting. So I will admit that I did not get that information to her, but it wouldn't have mattered. One person should not have a write-up, and the others not have their write-up. So I am preparing my work for Heather.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Hansard. Councillor Anderson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is awesome, for lack of a better word this evening. I'm going to go down the list here a little bit, but I spoke to a report earlier this year that was commissioned by Alberta municipalities and undertaken by the Public Policy Department at the University of Calgary that looked at tenure of CAO, and spoke to the median tenure in Alberta as 1.9 years, with the average being 2.4. Now, if this wonderful article that followed our CAO from Humboldt, Saskatchewan, with a little less gray in his photo is correct, I think Tom's been with us now for 14 years, certainly much higher than that provincial average, and in that time has weathered many storms, notwithstanding the COVID pandemic that caused so many new realities for residents in our community, and new realities for councils to deal with, and things that maybe councils were dealing with that maybe shouldn't have been on their plate, and certainly I believe we came out stronger on the other side as a community, and that's in no part thanks to Tom's leadership. We've seen remarkable progress as a community in our infrastructure, in our community events and the expansion there, and certainly believe he's transparent, collaborative, and led us into a situation where we're experiencing sustainable growth, and certainly proud as a resident and a councillor and a colleague of Tom's to see that this has been brought forward. I think it's well-deserved. So thank you for all you do. With that being said, again, next on the list for me was Councillor Hansard. Unwavering dedication for 23 years. 20 on council, but 23 years ago, I think, was the start of your first term, and certainly made a significant impact on our town. Your advocacy, thoughtful decision-making, genuine care for residents hasn't gone unnoticed by residents, council, our colleagues here on staff at the town of Stony Plain. whether it's championing initiatives like our outdoor exercise park, which I know you're proud of, attending boards, commissions, and council meetings or listening to residents. You are a tremendously strong advocate for Stony Plain. And, your contributions over the years have shaped our past. They are shaping our present and will continue to shape our future. And we're fortunate to have you as part of our team. So thank you for all you do. William Choi, Mayor William Choi. I had to dig deep to find this one as well, and I'm not sure if I've got it all, but I think 2007 as councillor, first term, if I'm not mistaken, and then moving into the mayor's seat, I think about 6 years later. Your tireless efforts throughout the years in promoting inclusivity, sustainability, and progress have made us a better place for everyone in our community. Whether it's chairing our meetings, advocating for local issues at a provincial and a federal level, or again, engaging with our residents, your passion for our town is unmatched. And, we see your history every time we're out and about in the community and the influence that you continue to have. So to you for being a beacon of hope and an advocate for positive change in Stony Plain, we're fortunate to have you at the helm and leading us into a brighter future. And so thank you as well for all you do. And then last but certainly not least, our leadership team, SLT. I don't know where we'd be without you. Each and every one of our general managers provides expertise and experience in an area that sometimes I'm only beginning to understand. And it truly is the work that you do, the leadership you provide to the rest of our staff that makes Stony Plain what it is. And so when I saw this, I've seen these each year that I've been on council and always wondered, how do I bring that forward? And then I go, okay, well, maybe next year I'll have a better understanding so that I could spearhead, something to acknowledge the work that's being done. And so certainly proud of you, certainly proud to be a part of your team, and certainly are tremendously grateful alongside 18,000 residents and 6 colleagues on council for the leadership you provide. So thank you for all you do as well. With that being said, thrilled to see this come forward this evening, and look forward to Alberta Munis and where this might go. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Anderson. You obviously tell that you're the teacher in the group.
My 1,000-word essay.
Your 1,000-word essay, and definitely I'm more than happy to have you write those submissions for us. Right. Councillor Meyer, your hand's up. Go ahead.
Well, I won't, I'll be very brief. It's, and just sort of a little story. We were all down in Calgary, and we all heard many challenges, we'll say, from other councillors out there. And I'm glad to say we do not face nearly those same levels of challenges here. And these people, I credit, I couldn't put it better than Justin, but you guys, we do a good job. And there's a reason we avoid a lot of those pitfalls, and it's because you guys.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Meyer. Any other questions for clarity and understanding? See none. Deputy Mayor, if I can ask you to make the motion, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The Town Council approves submission of the 2024 Alberta Municipalities Award nominees. Award of Excellence, Mayor William Choi. Distinguished Service Award, Councillor Pat Hansard. Dedicated CAO Award, Tom Golden. Dedicated Team Award, Town of Stony Plain Senior Leadership Team.
Thank you. Members of Council, any questions, comments, and debate on the motion? See none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, thank you. That brings us to number 10, which is council discussion. This is the time that members of council can bring things forward that they've heard from residents, or just share what's happening in their committees and events that may be upcoming in the next couple weeks. Councillor Lowry?
Not much this evening, Your Worship. You There's been recognized a couple times this evening that we've just spent the last 4 days in Calgary at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference. It was a fantastic conference. It was a great opportunity for a lot of learning and a lot of networking. And as Councillor Meyer said, I think it shows us how well we as a council function and get along together. And so, really respect everything that we were able to take away from there. And I hope everybody was able to take away something a little different. I know a little bit of a local emergency interrupted some of our plans and some of the sessions we intended on attending, but I think it was still a great opportunity, and I know I took a lot out of it. So appreciate the opportunity to attend that.
Thank you. Councillor Hansard.
Your Worship, I just want to remind everybody that this Wednesday, we pray for nice weather, please, is the startup of our 10th anniversary year of summer sessions, celebration of Stony Plain and the fabulous culture that we have here. We breathe culture in this community, and nothing, I think, says that better than summer sessions. We had record-breaking crowds twice last year. I anticipate that will continue because word has spread about these wonderful concerts, and people don't pay a penny for it. It just happens in our parks, and we enjoy an evening of getting together, creating community, and celebrating who we are and music and all the other wonderful things. So Wednesday night, I believe it kicks off at 5:30? 5:30? Does anybody know for sure? Come to Heritage Park for 5:30. Then you'll be there when it does start. And then we have we have warm-up music, and then we have the feature group that is going to be performing. You will not be disappointed.
Thank you, Councillor Hansard. I believe the opening act is at 6, and then the main headliner is at 7. So definitely come at 5:30. It would be a good time to come in and get your seats and then visit with some friends that you haven't seen in a while. Councillor Meyer.
Very simply, I just echo Councillor Laurie's comments about FCM. It was very informative, and I appreciate the opportunity to attend.
Councillor Loynes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to say congratulations again to the Spruce Grove graduates. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to represent our town. And I want to remind everybody that Father's Day is on Sunday, so happy Father's Day to all those father figures. And yeah, that's all.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment on our flag raising here just prior to council meeting. I just want to acknowledge that Stony Plain is a place that every resident deserves to feel safe and loved and welcomed. Every resident of Stony Plain deserves to see themselves reflected in the community around them. And I truly believe that Stony Plain is a safe, welcoming community for all, regardless of ethnicity and culture, sexual orientation, gender or otherwise. This afternoon we had the privilege to raise the Pride flag to recognize the Pride sidewalk as well. That's here outside Town Hall and our youth center. But just want to recognize again the value that we place on each and every resident who calls Stony Plain home, and we were honored to do that today. With that being said, my gratitude I think has been shared to our award nominees, to Mayor Troy, to Councillor Hansard, to our CAO Tom Goulden, and the rest of our SLT team. Words don't express and can't express the gratitude that we feel as a community here, but thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Worship. I'll take the music in the park one step forward. I think if everybody is watching social media, Jazz is doing an awesome job of promoting it on social media in a number of different ways. If you can like it and tag it and reshare it, I think it's a good sign of what he is doing for us by coming back. The Gecko Band is a Mexican classic rock and blues band based out of Puerto Vallarta, and the banders are a Bay Area, also known as the Party Squad. So I'm guessing he's heard them a number of times while he's out in that neck of the woods where they're now calling home. And we're looking forward to seeing it in our Music in the Park come Wednesday. So I encourage everybody to come out. I did want to change a little bit of the aspect of the FCM. We thank each other for going to FCM, and, you know, it's not about us really, it's about our relationships with who we create while we're down there. So we don't go there to be spending time with each other, we go there to spend time with many different municipalities, lots of the ruler there, lots of the, and this one is particularly comes across Canada. So we get an opportunity to learn a large amount of new way of doing things within a region. We also learn common themes to what is a problem within our communities and our country and ways that we may overcome it. So it's about team building with our own group, but it's about team building with everybody that we meet down there. And I think we each had a great opportunity to meet a number of people down there this past week and create some new relations and some new theories of how we may move our community forward. And I just want to thank Mayor Choi this afternoon for the raising of the pride flag. I think that speaks loud voices to our community of how inclusive this community truly is. We look at everybody as equal and we share them as equal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Fletchko and Deputy Mayor. Appreciate the work that you've done over the last couple months. Okay. Oh, yes, for me, just wanted to just kind of highlight what Councilor Owens said regarding the Spruce Grove grad. Definitely, this is grad season, so for those that are graduating from SPA, Memorial, the Comp, and Living Waters, congratulations. The hard work and dedication you've done over the last 12 years have got you to this point, so enjoy the moment. Celebrate today, but remember that life is just only starting, so your journey is lined up for you, and hopefully you have a very bright and prosperous future. I just want to mention that again, that Meals on Wheels will be celebrating its 45th anniversary. So to all the volunteers that make that possible over the last 45 years, thank you very much for your commitment and dedication to your community. Not only does Meals on Wheels provides a hot meal to those that are not able to obtain one or not able to get out, it's also a check-in point for those that are maybe housebound. And it is a great way to connect and learn who's in your community, and just say thank you for those that are been part of the Meals on Wheels program for the last 45 years. And I just want to make a comment about FCM again. This is the 7th time that I've attended FCM in my 17 years on council, but this is also my first time that I've seen that all members of council were able to attend. For those that are around the table and those that are in the community, FCM usually falls on our Farmers' Day weekend. So we usually draw numbers, who's unlucky that has to go and represent Stony Plain at FCM and who's lucky enough to stay and support our community in Farmers' Days. And that's how usually it goes. We usually send about half our delegation to FCM and half to Farmers' Day. But this year was the day that that match that we all were able to go, allowed us to attend more study tours, make some more connections and networking. As mentioned by our Deputy Mayor, it is about building those networks and relationships, talking to other municipalities and what their best practices are. We may be a municipality of a little over 18,000, growing to 30. There's other municipalities that have already gone through this road. What can we learn from them, right? And can we inspire those municipalities that are smaller than us? Right? We're about providing those services and amenities for our residents. If we can prevent foolish spending of our money because we watched another municipality do something that was wrong and it didn't work. So when we're able to take that knowledge back to your community, that is a benefit to us. That allows us to grow faster and better and plan for our communities. So there's that huge, I guess, huge package when you figure all that in through our federal municipalities and our Alberta municipalities. There's lots of nuggets of information, knowledge, and community benefit that we all have. So when you have the opportunity, make sure you stay educated, because that is your responsibility to our community, is to stay up of what's happening and what things we can bring forward to improve our community. Your job is not to be stagnant. When a council becomes stagnant, it's like a little red flat line in the ER. That's what happens to your community. When you grow your community, you're gonna have ups and downs, but the ups always outweigh the downs. And that's what we've done over the last, over 100 years in Town of Stony Plain. And I'll continue to look forward to serving our residents with this council and with administration. I think that's it. And before we close off and call adjournment, I just want to make sure that I acknowledge also the raising the pride flag today. Stony Plain is an inclusive community and welcoming to everyone, to every generation, to every skin color. Doesn't matter what kind of car you drive, what kind of house you live in, your economic status, or who you love. Stony Plain is inclusive, opening, and loving. To everyone, you are heard, you are seen, and you're loved. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.